Hey, what's up everyone? Coach Danny. In this tutorial, let's look at boxing fundamentals. More particularly, we're going to be looking at the footwork needed as well as the correct posture, which is your feet positioning, also known as the stance. So check it out. All right, so first things first, we're going to cover the fundamentals. So in the next series of videos, we're going to be covering some basics of boxing. So if you're a new boxer, if you're a seasoned practitioner, make sure to subscribe to this channel because we're going to be covering more content in regards to this topic. Okay, so first is always about your stance. So if you're just starting out, you're wondering what foot should be in front of the other. Well, basically, if you're right-handed like I am, you're just going to place your right foot back. All right, so a nice basic way without going to too much details, it's always to have your feet placed shoulder width apart. That's a good basics, right? It's going to always vary from individual to individual, but basically that's what I like to tell people all the time is just place your feet underneath your shoulders. That's a natural stance. This is how you would stand naturally, right? Now just take a step back and that's it. That step that you just took back is your natural step, right? So you don't want to be too narrow as such, and you don't want to be too wide also, right? Those are two frequent mistakes I see when people haven't been taught how to box or stand correctly, all right? So take a natural step back, and now you want to turn your feet on an angle, all right? So super simple. Imagine this is a clock, and you're facing 12 o'clock. Point your toes slightly around, let's say this is 12 o'clock and that's 3 o'clock right there, maybe between 1 and 2 o'clock, so just turn your feet slightly. Now, we're talking about boxing today, so if a lot of my followers follow me for Muay Thai or mixed martial arts, this is very different today. I'm talking about only hands only, all right? So this is the preferred stance if we're gonna be boxing only without low kicks, for example, okay? So now, once I have this correct posture of my feet, positionment, I have a good depth, and now I want to anchor myself. So by anchoring, a lot of times you'll hear me talking about sitting into your punches. You want to sit down to ground your feet into the floor to anchor yourself, to transfer good body weight into every individual punch you're going to be learning. So that means your butt, your core, your abs, your lower back has to be nice and grounded, and your hip bones are going to be just above your quadriceps like this. Of course, what I mean by that is you don't want to be leaning to one side or the opposite side, as well as your shoulder positioning. You don't want to be leaning forward, back, or front. All right, so always have the good posture. And now we're going to look at our hands positioning. Now, in the old days of boxing, old school boxing coaches used to teach their fighters to have the hands up like this. And you'll see old pictures of boxers a lot of times, they're always backwards like this and they have that shield in front. Well, that's basically because the old philosophy was your lead hand was the protective hand, which was the blocking or shielded hand, and the backhand was the one that you would use to try to knock your opponent out, right? In the old school, when even bare knuckle boxing was prevalent before today's bare knuckle boxing, all right? So look, if you were to grab a shield like a gladiator, you would grab it like this, and this is how you would hold your shield, right? Same thing, that's why they used to teach it like this. Now, I'm not gonna tell you to hold your hands like this, but I'm just giving you a little part of history of where it started. Now, I want your thumbs pointing your eyes, all right? And your pinky is gonna be towards your opponent. So this is the vertical stance right here. Now, it's true that the lead hand is going to serve a lot for defense because that's the one that's in front of you and the closest to your opponent. But it's also the one you're going to be using the most also because that's the jabbing hand. All right, so now ensure that your elbows are pointed down. The elbow here is also ready to protect your body and come back lower. And then the backhand is going to be the same thing for covering this real estate space right here. Now, you want your hand right here where the chin, and you want your chin slightly down, and you want the lead hand covering that front portion. That way there, your chin is always behind your boxing gloves, all right? I like to teach tutorials without the equipment just so you guys can see how I place my hands as well. Now, once we have this covered, we have to be able to move, all right? We know how to position ourselves. We know that we don't want our hands here in front of our stomach. We want our hands up to protect our face. Our elbows are going to be down to protect our rib cage. And now we want to be able to move. So the basics of movement today is going to be the footwork 101. Is going to be moving our feet and returning back into position. All right. So the first footwork I want to talk about is the half step. So the half step looks like this. If I want to move forward, I'm going to take a half step with my lead foot and then bring it right back into position. So imagine I place the dot here on the mat, and then I placed another dot just about, 4 or 5 inches above it. And I'm just gonna bring my lead foot onto that point and then bring it right back to the initial starting position. Now, notice the back foot didn't move on this one. That's called a half step. So I want you guys practicing just that lead foot. You step it in and back out. So you push off the right foot into the left and then bring it back to the starting position. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, I want you guys practicing the same step, that half step with your rear leg. So watch the right foot. It's going to move back and return. Back and return. So if we go again from the front to the back, it's going to look half step here and back. Half step here and back. One more time. Lead step, back step, and back. All right? Now, once we got this covered, we're going to start to doing a full step. All right? So now, I'm going to step with my lead foot, but before I return here, I'm going to take a step with my back foot to follow through. So it's going to go 1 and 2. All right? Notice again, lead foot, rear foot will follow. And now if I want to go backwards, rear foot, lead foot follows. See? 1, 2. 1, 2. Now let's review quickly. Half step to the front. Here. Half step to the back. Here. Now full step forward. 1. Full step backward. 2. Okay, now if we mix it up one more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now of course, these are just the basics. Once we understand how to distribute our weight from the front to the back foot, we also want to be able to learn this from side to side. So basically, if I want to move to my left side, it's important to understand that I don't want to be crossing my foot as such. All right, we talked about the initial position of having a good separation between your feet, that nice depth. I want to initiate my movement and return into that same exact position. So look, if I move to my left side, this lead foot is going to move first, and then I'm going to follow with the back foot. If I move to my right side, this foot is going to move first, and then my lead foot's going to return back into position. All right, so one more time, slow. If I'm moving to this side, watch my feet. And if I'm moving to this side, that's the foot that's going to follow through. Okay, now let's recap everything together. So the half step forward, 1. Half step backward, 2. Full step forward, 1. Full step forward, full step backward here. And now full step to the side, full step to this side, and back, right? And this is a good little drill. If you're just starting out, you want to warm up your legs or ankles or calves, just do this for a set amount of time. Just move around with this. There's no particular order. I'm just setting it up for a structured way for you guys to start out with, but eventually you want to mix and match all of these steps. Now, once you understand this, of course, you want to start slow, but eventually put some speed into it, right? So you're boxing here, and then boom. And then the reason why the half step works is maybe I threw a punch, such as a jab, for example, and I half step in, but I return back into position, because when you're boxing and sparring, you're going to be learning how to control distance and range. And you're going to be stepping in just in the proper distance to connect your punch, but also returning back to that exact range where you're missing the punch of your opponent, where that opponent can't jab you, right? So that full extension, that half step is going to bring you in a few inches just to hit the target, right? So that's why we use the half step. And the same thing goes for the half step back. The reason why we would want to practice this is this will tilt your head backwards to make that slip back motion when the opponent jabs you. So you move out of the way and then you're back into balance, right? As opposed to if I took a full step back, that's fine. I take a full step back, but I evaded that punch, but I also put my own body out of position to counter back. All right, so there's always going to be times where you're going to use one or the other, and eventually with more experience, you're going to know which one to use when, or your coach is going to help you with that as well. So let's go back to the basics. Moving in, half step forward, 1 and 2. Half step back, boom. Now full step in, boom. Full steps are going to be used when you want to follow your opponent. Now maybe your opponent's trying to put some pressure on you, and instead of like just covering up, maybe you just move all the way back, all right? And now, when you move to the side now, if I do this step, maybe I can use my right hand to counter back, right? So maybe someone's charging in on you, you sidestep here, boom, that right hand fires through, okay? Now maybe he's coming to this side, you move here, and then boom, maybe this hand will follow through. Then you want to learn to always come back to the middle. Now, of course, eventually I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use this, shuffling, using your square stance, also moving in and out, creating angles as well. But this video is meant to be for the people who are just starting out, or even the seasoned boxer that wants to learn some basics once again, because I've seen a lot of guys that have tremendous experience, they have fast hands, powerful shots, but they can't land anything simply because they have poor footwork, and these drills are going to help tremendously. Now, adding to all of this, remember when you're training, put these concepts into your own sessions, all right? Always make sure to break down things slowly at first, all right? A lot of people that watch our channel are basically MMA guys, sometimes they're just fitness enthusiasts, and sometimes they're boxers. But a lot of times they're also Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. And a lot of Jiu-Jitsu practitioners have never trained in striking. So they don't have that footwork and that coordination yet. This video is great for those individuals because a lot of times I'll have Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling practitioners at my own academy. And once they start the striking segment, they start training boxing and Muay Thai, then they're lost because everything was done on the ground and then they're not coordinated on their feet. And it also works vice versa, right? But the thing is, these drills are really gonna help you out if you spend the extra time, sometimes just 15, 20 minutes within every session. Sometimes I use these myself just to warm up before I start firing shots on the heavy bag. This is a great thing to practice at all times. And eventually, like I said earlier, you wanna put in more speed and then practice this and break the rhythm. Don't just be like a robot. So maybe you go forward and then return right back. You know, maybe you go back and then you return right, bounce back into position. You go here and then back to here. Practice returning back. Here, right back to here, right? Eventually, you want all of this footwork to become very natural, very fluid for you. You want it working. I always like to tell my students, you want your feet to have a mind of their own. So you don't have to think about how your footwork goes. You can think about your offense techniques. You can think about your defensive techniques, but not about your footwork. That's gonna drive naturally for you. So the more you practice, the better you'll become. All right, guys, so there you have it. Quick tutorial to help you guys with your boxing footwork. Hope you enjoyed this content. Leave us a thumbs up. Also, if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more tutorials just like this one. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.